At Thanksgiving, my dad announced, "We're not going to babysit your kids anymore." The turkey was already carved when he said it. Not with ceremony. Not with anger. Just a clearing of the throat and a sentence placed on the table like a serving spoon. "We've decided we're not going to babysit your kids anymore." Third-person observational, that's how it felt in my body, like I was watching someone else absorb the sentence. Around us, forks paused. My mother kept her eyes on the gravy boat. Someone laughed softly, thinking it was a joke or a misfire of timing. I nodded once, because nodding was the shape my restraint took that day. I waited for the rest of it, the explanation, the conditions, the reassurance that it wasn't personal. None came. The sentence stood alone, firm as policy. What rose in me wasn't rage. It was a quick, precise sorting. I saw Saturdays on ladders, fixing gutters that weren't mine. I saw evenings spent tracing wires through walls. My kids in the living room counting the minutes until we could go home. I saw how often my competence had been praised only when it saved someone else money. I said, "Seriously?" He shrugged. "We're just setting boundaries." Something loosened then. Not snapped. Loosened. "Okay," I said. "Then I'm done doing repairs on your house." It wasn't a threat. It was a symmetry. I stood, kissed my mother's cheek, and left before the room could reorganize itself into persuasion. The door closed behind me with a polite click, the kind you can't accuse of drama. That night, the silence felt intentional. I tucked my kids in and told myself this was what boundaries felt like when they were new. Awkward, underfurnished, a little cold. I slept better than I expected. The next morning, my phone exploded. At first, it was family, confusion, annoyance, a few messages that tried to sound neutral and failed. Then a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. Then an email with a municipal seal in the header. A city inspector had been by. A neighbor had reported ongoing work. The message was factual and calm. Unpermitted electrical modifications. Safety concerns. A follow-up visit scheduled. The authority intervened without emotion. That was the unmistakable part. Not my parents calling to apologize or argue, but a system that didn't care about Thanksgiving or history or who'd meant well. The work I'd done, quietly, informally, as a favor, was now a liability. Not to me, but to them. My father called mid-morning. His voice was clipped, careful in a way I'd never heard before. "They're saying we need a licensed contractor," he said. "They're asking who did the work." I looked at my calendar. Empty. Gloriously empty. "I can't help with that," I said. "I told you yesterday." There was a pause. Not wounded. Calculating. "So you're just going to leave us with this?" "I'm leaving it with professionals," I said. "That's what they're for." He exhaled. "This is going to cost us." "I know." That was it. No lecture. No inventory read aloud. The leverage wasn't in what I said, but in what I didn't rush to undo. The inspector came. Contractors were called. Estimates arrived with commas in them. The house, which had relied on my weekends and my quiet fixes, entered the formal world where labor is named and priced. A few days later, my mother texted. She asked about the kids. She asked about my work schedule. She didn't ask for help. When we finally talked, it was different. Not warm, not healed, but careful. I told them what I could do going forward and what I couldn't. Babysitting was their choice. Repairs were mine. Support, if it existed, would be mutual or it wouldn't exist at all. There was no victory lap, just a strange calm, the kind that comes when dignity returns without applause. On Saturday, instead of crawling under their sink, I took my kids to the park. I watched them run and felt the tension sit beside me, unresolved but contained. The house across town would be fixed by strangers with permits and invoices. Our relationship would be something else, smaller, maybe, but no longer built on unpaid labor. Boundaries didn't fix my family. They fixed the silence where I'd been disappearing.